Good evening. My name is Tom Taylor. I'm the director here at your Andover Public Library, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the opening of our special exhibit, Declaration 1776, The Big Bang of Modern Democracy. Before we jump right in, I want to thank a few people. A lot of you are here with us now, but today is actually National Library Workers' Day. And this would not be possible, then the library would not be possible without such a great staff. Especially Erica here, who did a lot of the setup for this, the video, and Jessica, who's not here, but the designing of the banner, and the city of Andover printed that out for us. It turned out really great. I know Kendra and Angela were helping a lot, so it's a team effort. Also, this exhibit is possible through Humanities Kansas, as well as the Kansas Art Commission and the National Endowment for the Arts. I also want to thank our friends of the library for providing us a wonderful reception, refreshments here. Diane Whitman does such a fantastic job. Anytime there's decorating and food involved, and if you're not a member of the Friends, please consider joining. And Sue Still, this is years in the making. Sue has been asking for us to have a traveling exhibit for years. And so Sue, I'm proud that you're here to see this. I'd also like to thank the Institute for Museum and Library Services. They have been instrumental in planning and promoting America 250. So what's this all about? Well, 250 years ago, not exactly, but on this 4th of July, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's a very important document, not only to our country, but to the world in general. I wanted to give you, thanks to our friends at Humanities Kansas, a little brief overview about how we got to 1776. Obviously, you've heard of Athenian democracy or the Republic of Ancient Rome, but those fell in short order, and Europe was ruled by monarchs, by hereditary monarchies. And that included the people that settled these lands. Here's the British colonies. This is from Jamestown. The British settled what is now the 13 colonies. Sometimes they came for economic opportunities, sometimes for religious freedoms. Here's a recreation of a Massachusetts Bay colony. Very primitive, hard life, tough. Here we're seeing what the original British colonies were in that red. The pink is the French, and the yellow is the Spanish. So prior to the Declaration of Independence, North America, or at least the eastern half of North America, was divided by 3 imperial European powers. The British were the ones who we got our culture from primarily. Not to say that the Spanish and French didn't have an influence, they certainly did, but for the Declaration anyways. There was a lot of war that happened. England and France had fought for over 1,000 years prior to the 18th century. That battle spilled out into their colonies. Here in our country, we call it the French and Indian Wars. It's called the 7-Year War if you study European history. What the result of that is the British Crown realized that this was too difficult to pay for this war. We want the colonials to help pay for it. George Washington was a general in the French and Indian War. The British won that war, kicked out the French from what is now Quebec, and they settled in Louisiana. But it was a very costly war. And in order to pay for the war, the British decided to make the colonials pay. And they did that through stamps, tax, tea tax, all these different taxes that they passed. And these were new things. Colonists hadn't had to pay these taxes before, so they were rather incensed, especially businessmen. And so the slogan, "No taxation without representation," came about. The colonies didn't have a voice in the British Parliament. They didn't have the king's ear. And that was upsetting for us, for people, especially those that had been raised on the writings of like Rousseau and Montesquieu and had looked to Rome as an example. Well, Boston was sort of the epicenter of the resistance, and the British sent their troops into Boston to quell the uprising. Here's an illustration from 1768 that shows the British landing in Boston. Perhaps you've heard of the Boston Massacre. That's when British troops fired on a protest that it was done in Boston against the various taxes. The most famous resistance, of course, is the Boston Tea Party, when colonists hijacked a shipment of tea and dumped it into the Boston Harbor. This happened in 1773. I don't know if they're going to recreate that in Boston or not. It'd be kind of cool if they did. But the shots heard around the world. Up until then, there hadn't been an active resistance to the British. But when the British marched, and you've heard of Lexington and Concord, American militia fired back, and that was the shot heard around the world. This is the first time that a colonial militia had stood up and used force against the motherland. There's our friend General Thomas Gage. He led the British Army in Boston, not a very popular guy. You've heard of Paul Revere, the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. One if by land, two if by sea. Paul Revere and his friends were warning other patriots about the British. The British are coming, the British are coming. This happened in April 18th of 1775. So they were trying to get the word out so people could hide or resist, prepare for the British to be here. Not everyone was in favor of secession. There were attempts to reconcile with the king. Here is his Sacred Majesty, George III. George grew up speaking German. Maybe you've heard of the movie The Madness of King George. He was not interested in listening to what the colonists had to say. Tom Paine wrote Common Sense. This came out before the Declaration of Independence. This tract here is very important in terms of the call for freedom, the call for independence. Very important document. Influenced the writing of the Declaration, which, as we know, was signed July 4th, 1776. Here you see the famous painting recreating that. You all know John Hancock had his giant signature so the king could read it without his reading glasses. It was a watershed moment in the history of our country, certainly, but around the world. It certainly influenced the French Revolution, which started in 1789, and revolutions all throughout the Western Hemisphere as countries searched for their independence from their European powers. We're really privileged to have this exhibit here. It's traveling through other places in the States. I'm very proud of our efforts to bring it here. We're one of the only areas in Wichita area that has this exhibit, so we hope you'll spread the word and tell people to come check it out. We have some, in addition to the wonderful refreshments to you, we have some nice bookmarks that kids can take to color. If you want a beach ball, you can have one. We'll give those away in the summer too. Got rulers with the presidents on the back. We're going to have fun with these later in the year for kids. I needed glasses cleaner, or maybe your phone. So we have patriotic glasses wipes. And then the state library has Celebrating Kansas 250. They're listing 250 books throughout the year. These are Kansas notable books, so you can take a look at that. We have a lot of them in our collection, and the ones that we don't have, we can borrow and get from our partner libraries or other libraries throughout the state. So again, thank you for coming. The exhibit is in our Story Laboratory, just underneath the sign there. Please help yourself to refreshments or anything else, and if you have any questions, we're here to help. Thank you.